chartered by Congress, so it's not just a club, it was chartered by Congress in September of 1919. The Sons of the American Legion, but eligible for membership in the American Legion. And together, these three organizations make up what we call the Legion family. And they all have placed, as it says here, place high importance on American traditions and values, and most importantly, teaching the fundamentals of good citizenship. And I just went through some of the history and wrote down some of the things that, and I highlighted some of the things I thought were more important, that it's something that the Legion has done. Legion has created some organizations, done some things itself, but more importantly, it's been an extremely strong lobby for a lot of things. The American Legion had a lot to do with the formation of the Veterans Administration, as we know it today, originally called the Veterans Bureau. It had a lot to do with creating, well, it created its own GI Bill of Rights, and soon that became the GI Bill. As I went to college on the GI Bill back in many years ago. The American Legion Auxiliary had a lot to do with the formation. It didn't form the American Heart Association, but it made a very generous donation to the American Heart Association in its early years, and that helped get it going. The Legion also helped form the National Association for Mental Health, and I'll do a few other things here. I'll go show some of the other things that the Legion has done. Apparently, this Howling Safety Program is the only one of its kind in the world. Nobody else has something like that. We made a big donation to the Vietnam Memorial. And that's all I have for that presentation. So I'd like to go ladies first here. Mrs. Craig, I know, has written some things will tell us some things about the history of the American Legion. First of all, Mrs. Craig, as a member of the Legion, her husband was fought in World War II, and he was in the Marine Corps, right, and flew on a B-29 bomber? B-25. And from what I read about those guys, he was lucky to come home. So, Mrs. Craig? Okay. So where's the microphone, Jerry?
Don't need that.
After all the trouble we went to rig that up?
Okay. The first charter for the Arden-Kelsey Unit 907 American Legion Auxiliary was granted after World War I, and Arden-Kelsey, the first Kander boy who lost his life, claims the name of the post. The charter date was July 31st, 1934, and there were 12 people that signed that. I mean, none of them are alive, of course, today, but this is the largest, most influential organization of women in the United States today. The unit of the Arden-Kelsey post had a charter in 1946, and there were 50 ladies that signed for that one. And of course, a lot of my relatives were some of the first officers. Helen Craig was the first president. Catherine Craig was the first vice. Gladys Blinn was the second vice. And the secretary was Ruth Blinn. And there was a treasurer by the name of Mrs. Gerald Turner. And she is Marion Rollins nowadays. Executive committee was Mrs. Carl Baker, Mrs. Clarity Wolf, and Mrs. Paul Hay. Meetings of both the Legion and Auxiliary were initially held on the second floor of the Kander Courier building on Main Street in Kander, next to what is now Kander Market. And of course now we're too old to climb those stairs. So it's a good thing that they moved to the old home, which was the former Payne home on Spencer Avenue across from the ballpark, and then to our current home on the Spencer Road, which usually was an engineering office, but it had plenty of room for us. The unit has been very involved in the auxiliary, veteran and community concerns right from the start. Activities that first year included Christmas boxes for local needy families, another box to the Bath Hospital for veterans to make selections for their families, hosting the county committee, July 4th food stand, distribution of poppies, attending department president's dinner, sending a local girl-to-girl state, and attending the state convention. These still continue today as part of our unit's programs, and I happen to be chosen as the first representative from Tioga County to the first Empire Girls State in 1941, which was held at Russell Sage College. Fundraising to support these programs has also spanned 65 years. A few of the first ventures included serving refreshments at Legion dances, sponsoring dances at the school, selling boxes of greeting cards and air fresh, bake sales, and raffles of homemade articles. Later, fundraisers such as the annual Fall Festival, Craft Fair, and the July 4th 50-50 raffle were held. The subsequent years were filled with the expansion of participation in auxiliary programs and community needs, as well as building an enduring membership, interaction of the school to raise awareness of patriotism, assistance to families in the community in times of need, financial support to individuals and groups for scouting, camps, seminars, field trips, and remembrances to servicemen at Christmas were additional activities undertaken by this auxiliary. Cancer control has expanded to include the Relay for Life activities, St. Baldrick's head shaving for pediatric cancer research, and the auxiliary, together with the Legion, continues to support local youth sports programs. As soon as the unit had adequate facilities in the old home, the sponsorship of dinners and banquets were expanded. Then, as now, some were for profit, but many were recognizing dinners for our own Legion, the Junior Legion baseball team, and other youth groups. Bowling banquets, wedding, and other receptions, Legion and auxiliary dinners became routine events. The junior auxiliary members are those girls under age 18. Their daughters, granddaughters, and great-granddaughters of Legionnaires deserve honorable mention. From the beginning, Cantor's juniors have actively participated in auxiliary activities within the capabilities of their age groups. Decorations, poppy posters, and distribution of poppies, special courtesies to Gold Star mothers and shut-ins, assisting at children's Halloween and Christmas parties, waiting tables for dinners, bake sales, and helping in the July 4th food and other concession stands. Many of you may remember the years when our juniors had an active drill team in color guard that represented us in our home area and across the state. In the last 5 years, Cantor has continued as the largest and most active unit in Tioga County. Many auxiliary members have served as county president, and many others have filled supporting offices, often more than once. Our individual members in our unit are well respected throughout New York State. We have had some ladies who have attained the office of 6th District President, and they were Helen Craig, Catherine Craig McCormick, Barbara Sanders, Mary Louise Collins, and Nancy Leonard. Special appreciation for the success and endurance of our auxiliaries throughout our 65 years of service must also be given to the members of Arden-Kelsey Post 907 American Legion. The Legion and auxiliary have always cooperated and depended on each other in countless ways. Large joint efforts such as July 4th, Memorial Day, Children's Halloween and Christmas parties, assistance to the needy at holiday times, as well as official Legion and auxiliary functions are some of the more visible co-sponsored activities. However, as many of our members know and appreciate, our groups have often relied on each other for financial support. and for the more mundane activities of running a post, purchasing, remodeling, furnishing, maintaining, and updating our post home involved then and still involves many dollars, hours, and lots of cooperation. This spirit of cooperation continues among the Auxiliary Legion and the Sons of the Legion. It has become a major factor in keeping the post afloat following the demise of our bingo program, resulting in the forming of the Save Our Building group and its related fundraising activities. Since 2006, the economic downturn, along with its financial realities, have impacted our organizations and our community. Times, jobs, and money are tight, affecting membership in our groups as well as participation. Excuse me. Squadron 907 of the Sons of the American Legion has become an even more active and vital part of our Legion family, taking the lead and assisting with various repairs and remodeling of our Legion home, and they're much younger than some of us. These projects include the renovations of 2 restrooms as well as the kitchen. The Auxiliary and Sons have also collaborated on special causes in the last few years. Together, we sponsored 3 annual Veterans Walkathons and bike rides, raising large sums for veterans' homes and facilities around New York State. In September of 2011, our area was flooded as never before. Many homes, families, and businesses were affected with much property loss, but no loss of lives. Emergency shelters and distribution shelters were set up in Candor, with Legion, Auxiliary, and Sons members working tirelessly with other community groups and individuals for weeks to help not just Candor residents, but any in need. The Legion groups hosted a flood relief benefit in October, distributing much needed and appreciated cash cards to affected families. In December of 2011, the Auxiliary and Sons combined funds and working with the Candor Market provided Christmas hams to the Bread of Life food pantry to distribute with their holiday pantry items. Helping families in need is a tradition for our group that dates back to our earliest years. From 2006 to 2011 and into early 2012, Unit 907 has lost many dear, long-standing members, including 7 honorary life members, 2 of whom were charter members, and 6 past presidents. This follows the general aging membership pattern of both the Legion and the Auxiliary on all levels. On the plus side, however, new Auxiliary members are enrolled on a regular basis and encouraged to become active as their time and talents allow. Twice in the past 5 years, Unit 907 has been recognized by the Department of New York for enrolling the most new junior members in a given membership year. We are grateful to 3 remaining charter members, Mary Haig, Marion Turner Rollins, and myself. So from the 63 and 64 Auxiliary Historian Report, we decided combining our efforts worked out better than separately. How true then is now. So the reports of all the activities that we do by members from various auxiliary programs are necessary to report to Congress so that Congress can be aware of participation in Veterans Affairs, especially for funding to Bath or Oxford Hospital in our district and any veterans hospitals in the Department of New York. Let us consider and count our many, many blessings.
You mentioned, one thing you mentioned I'll tell us more about is Girl State. The Legion has Boy State. You were, the auxiliary sponsors Girl State and sends girls regularly. You went yourself?
Yes,
Tell us about
right.
What that is. People who don't know what
American
that is.
Legion Auxiliary Girls State is learn by doing and patriotism, and you go to some college dorm, and they
Now
picked
they
that
go,
out.
is Morris still there where they go?
That's where the boys go.
Also, that's right.
Girls go to Brockport and
Okay.
some of these other big schools. But I went to Russell Sage up near Albany, and of course, they were just initiating the program, so there was only about 150 of us there, but now they're up in the 300 and something, where each auxiliary can send a representative to a girls' state, pay their way, and so it's really a very exciting program, and it gives you the idea of, oh, we're just little old Candor, but you get down there with people from New York City and Buffalo and everything, and you think, what am I doing here? But you learn a lot. They have public speakers come in that are associated with government, and of course, we were fewer in number, so we were bused to the chambers up in Albany, and then you sat in the chair of whatever you represented. You have elections in this girls' state business, and so you can be either dog catcher or governor or any of those things, but you campaign and you go through all the publicity that goes with this. So, very rewarding.
Any more questions for Mrs. Craig about the auxiliary?
Just interesting on Girls State. Georgia went to Girls State from Vestal. We went to Vestal School. And Betty Hollenbeck went same year. And that's when Georgia met Betty Hollenbeck there. And they ended up being neighbors living next door to Jim.
Yeah, right.
So, that was 1951, I think.
Two other distinguished members, Mr. Terry Collins, who was eligible for the Legion because he served during the Korean War, right, Terry?
Right.
Bob and I both did.
In the Navy, and he patrolled off the West Coast, and the record shows that no one attacked us on the West Coast while he was on duty.
All right.
Part of the occupation forces in Europe, right, Bob? And served in Germany and the military intelligence. Now, most people think military intelligence is an oxymoron, but in fact, Bob served there and listened in on the enemy. So, you guys can tell us something about the Legion here in Candor and what you remember about it, how it got formed, and where it was, and
There's not much to add other than Rini through. And well, actually, I suggested Bob get a hold of Rini because she was somebody that had some of the history from back when, the charters were formed, especially the auxiliary, and where they were located. And I came to Candor in 1961. I didn't join the Legion until 1976, something like that. We joined the same year. Even though we were considered to be wartime veterans, Bob and I were both in the same category during the Korean War. The government, or the Legion, didn't recognize us. However, the United States government did, and the VA did. I went to college under the VA GI Bill of Rights. I know, Roger and I were at the same college at the same time. And eventually, the Legion came around and changed the dates that you were eligible. And that's when Bob and I joined, and several other people from the Korean era. The Korean War ended in 1955, according to what the federal government said. The Legion said it ended in 53, so at that time. Well, then they changed it to 55, which made us more than eligible. I went in 53, but we'll beyond the dates. I don't know when Bob went in. But we have a similar history as far as joining the Legion. And just a little side note, he and I joined the VFW before we did the Legion because we were eligible for the VFW. And we both joined that the same night down in Owego. And so we've known each other for a good many years since I've been to Candor. And Rainey really gave a good history, and I compliment you for that. And she gave it for all of the groups. We've been more than active over the years. It's gotten kind of hard. After World War II, there was a big influx of veterans, as most people know. There were millions of veterans. And that hasn't happened since then. And quite frankly, what?
Thankfully.
Yes, thankfully. And I got to say that good number of people that served during World War II, most of them are not with us anymore. The Candor Legion, I'm not really positive, but I think we have maybe 3 or 4 World War II veterans left. And one of them was invited tonight, Bob Brown. Well, he just didn't feel up to coming, I guess. But, he goes to bed early, and Bob invited him. And he had a way of getting here, I know that, but he decided not to come. And there just aren't that many. I remember a few years ago, when we had the 4th of July votes, when I first started doing it, I had World War II veterans, and we put them in convertibles and stuff, and that's all we had was World War II veterans. And then we got a float, and we put them up on chairs in the float. And finally, we didn't have enough World War II, so that we allowed all veterans to sit on the float. Because this year we had 2 on there that were World War II, and one guy was in his, I think he was 90, I don't know. As an individual, I don't know. He just had joined the Legion, and we allowed him to ride. Well, we allowed anybody. We've even asked people from Owego veterans if they would want to ride with us, like the VFW or the Legion. And but the ranks are thinning, and as Bob said, rightfully so. This is what we would like to have happen. I know a gentleman had always said the Legion was born to die, because we would hope we'd have no wars, but that just hasn't happened at this point. But of course, there's a lot less military people serving. And so our ranks are thinning, they're getting smaller. And that's not to say, well, a veteran that's eligible, anybody right now that's in the service is eligible to join the Legion. In fact, there's few dates anymore that they're not eligible, but if they're eligible and want to join and you know all of them, send them to us. We certainly need the people. Our meetings are getting thinner and thinner. And as I say, those Nick Rollins used to say, the Legion was born to die. And the Sons of the American Legion were meant to take over like the Civil War, Sons of the Civil War veterans and so forth. And that's a good thing. The Legion has done an awful lot. I know sometimes it gets chastised of being just a bar, but that's not true. My wife goes there, she doesn't drink. And she goes there, she's been a district president, county president, auxiliary president, and we've helped a lot. And I know there's a number of people that don't go to the bar. There are people that do. But it's not just a bar. And I want to say that because we hear that rumor every once in a while. Oh, the Legion's nothing but a bar. That's not true. You wouldn't have the 4th of July celebration if it wasn't for the Legion. And that's gone on, I think, since the 1930s, but it may have dropped off for a while or something. Am I right?
I think so too, yes.
And you know, the Legion has sponsored this for years. And I don't think some of the people in the town of Candor give us credit for the work that we do in sponsoring this. Now, there is other groups who are trying to get the community involved this year because they were actually short of funds. And they made out quite well, because the community did come together, and we still have our Kentucky Derby we've had for
20-some years, and I was involved for many years. Actually, I went back and became involved this year again a little, and my wife said, why? But, time to quit, but I guess sometimes you don't know enough to quit. And, you know, this is to put on the fireworks. And I think we had a pretty good fireworks this year. Didn't have a bigger ground display. There was a reason for that also, because they had a bigger carnival and was spreading closer, and they're getting a little shaky about insurance, and they don't want people too close to the ground display. So, other than that, I thought it was a good fireworks this year. And we tried to keep the cost the same. And, you know, it used to be time bands are extremely expensive. And they've gotten more and more expensive.
You're talking about the bands that march in the parade, right?
Yes, the
So we
bands.
have, a lot of people don't know, we have to pay those bands hundreds of dollars to come to our parade. They don't just show up voluntarily.
Oh, no, they're
So
$600-$700.
we spend about as much money on the parade as we spend on the fireworks.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah. The parade is costly, and we donate for the floats and things like that. And that comes from our 4th of July fund. And, you know, I sometimes think that the Legion doesn't get the credit it should from outside members. And maybe it does, I don't know. But a lot of effort has gone into it, a lot of fundraising goes into it, a lot of preparation goes into it. And I don't know what else you want from the Boys State program. The Legion baseball is on and off again, but that's not always the Legion's fault. It's sometimes just getting organized and getting the kids out. They have trouble getting the kids out, and the whole county is having the same problem. Waverly doesn't field the team as big a place as they are, and sometimes Owego doesn't.
I read when I was reading about when the Legion baseball program was started, and I forgot the year, it might have been on my chart there, but I thought it was significant. They said that half of the players in Major League played in Legion ball as they were teenagers. So,
Yeah, I think
one of
it's
my
just
sons
like
played in it. One of my sons played in it, but he's not playing professionally, so he's part of the other half.
But these are good programs, and Boys State and Girls State. You've had several presidents that were part of Boys State. That were in Boys State, because they go to Boys State, they go to Boys Nation. And I think President Kennedy was one, if I recall. President Kennedy.
Yes.
He was a Boy Stater.
Yes.
I know there could have been others. These are good programs, and I guess I probably rambled on long enough. I'll let Mr. Houck, with his handlebar mustache, ramble on after me.
After these guys have covered everything, there's not a lot left to say. I think part of the thing, there's a lot of veterans that can join, but today's veterans are young and they resist joining the organization. They don't want to go to meetings. But a lot of them say, well, when my kids grow up, if I get more time, then I want to come get active. But, and it's the same thing like Terry mentioned with baseball. A lot of kids now have a summer job and they don't have time. A year ago, when we had a baseball team, they made it into the state playoffs, but they scheduled a playoff during the middle of a workday, and all these kids had jobs. So they had to forfeit the playoff game because they couldn't go to the game. So, and that tends to make more kids not too interested and even want to join. But a lot of our programs have gone that way. We used to have an oratorical contest every year. And the kids would go to the county and give a speech, I think on the Constitution, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And if they won there, they could go to the state. If they won the state, they could go to national. And they had a chance to win some large scholarships. But we couldn't even get any kids to sign up locally that wanted to do it.
we worked through the guidance counselors in the school to find people that were being implemented. I think this year we sent 2.
Two,
But Oratorical, it's been years since we sent anybody to that. No one seems,
and we had several years when,
we don't know all the kids. We worked through the guidance counselors at the school to tell us, to give us candidates.
the years when we didn't send, it wasn't because we couldn't find any boys that wanted to go.
It's too bad.
In the oratorical, we've had a couple people from Gander that went quite far. Jimmy Morris's daughter and Eva Group, John Lewis's daughter, they went on quite a ways. They were good.
Tell us about, Ray mentioned that the first Legion meetings were held in the upstairs from the Cantor Market, right? Does that work?
Next door to the,
Oh, next door to Cantor Market.
over the liquor store.
Oh, the liquor store, okay. And then you remember about what time that the Legion, one of you gentlemen remember about what time the Legion purchased its first property here in town? What,
1959, 58, somewhere in the neighborhood, wasn't it?
Probably. Then they went to the present place, they bought that in early 1960. 61, they moved up there.
where the Legion is today, my wife Nancy's father worked there as an engineer
Until about 1960.
until that went out of business, and then when that went out of business, the Legion bought it. Before that, the Legion had the home that's next to where the barbecue pit is, that we still own that field, and where that softball field was, the barbecue pit, and the home is next to it on the right there was the Legion post for a long time, and they sold that home and bought the building that we're in now.
I can tell you kids where it started.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
They started out in a little bitty building that John Stickle later owned, the dry cleaning building. That blue green building.
That's right. That was the first
And I was a Boy Scout, and the best part of it was when we marched to the Memorial Day Parade, which they sponsored, of course, and we'd get on the bridge and throw the wreath in the creek
Right.
over to the cemetery, and we shoot off the guns, and we came back to Killy's store, and we got a nice bean.
All right.
And that's where it started as far as I can see.
Okay. I thought you were going to tell us some.
44.
I thought you were going to tell us some heartwarming patriotic tale about Memorial Day, but we remember it's the ice cream. Any questions for these? Yes, sir.
I just want to make a comment. I think it's been a wonderful asset, this community. I've been around a while and seen it. And I had a personal experience that was very important to me, I remember well. It was after the war in 1948, and I think Pete Lovejoy was the commander, been very active in the Legion, and I was fortunate to get selected to go to Boys State. And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. It was held at Colgate University. We had the whole tour of the camp. It's a beautiful place. There were 100 plus, 125 people there. As described before with Girl State, you go all through an election process. You have your own governance. And there were several people in the region that I remained acquaintances with for a number of years. One was Pheasant Farms in Kings Ferry. If you go to Kings Ferry, the big farm just beyond the crossroads, owned by the Pheasant family. They went over 100,000 gallons. And a young man by the name of Burris, who's deceased now, but was from Odessa. It was a wonderful experience for me. And a little bit of further connection, fast forward from 1948 to 1957. And fresh off the farm, IBM was opening the plant in Owego. And I decided to go work with IBM. So I go down to interview, and of course you're scared to death and going, well, who interviewed me but Pete Lovejoy? And it was a short interview. I was fortunate to get a job right away at Eric Brown's, and it was just a wonderful experience. It was right after the war. The Legion was flushed. You had to come back, and I remember going and having to give a full report of what went on. And the Legion had a number of people there. I mean, and the organization was pretty vibrant right after World War II. So I'll always be appreciative. It's a wonderful organization, great experience.
I want to echo that in a different way. somebody, I guess probably everybody knows, I'm not from Candor, I'm from another state, way down south, but Candor's kind of adopted me, and I love this town, I love this community, and, you know, my observation is that every community, there's a handful of people in every community that kind of give the community its personality. And I think these people are a big part of that personality that makes Candor a small town with a big heart. And I'm really glad to be associated with them, and they're not the only people in town that do that, but I think they're a very important part of it, and our organization is a very important contributor, I believe, to the atmosphere of this community. So,
Bob,
yes, ma'am.
as far as dates to be eligible for the Legion, isn't that sanctioned, or aren't those dates picked by Congress?
They are. Yeah, they are.
Because the American Legion is the only patriotic organization, or only military organization sanctioned by, or recognized by Congress.
That's correct. That's correct. And so, yeah, because they established it, they chartered it, its first charter, as I mentioned, was in September 1919. It was chartered by Congress at the time, and these other organizations are affiliated. But you're right, the membership is established by Congress. Some of us, and we've had some discussions in the Legion about wouldn't it be nice if all veterans could be a member of the Legion. You know, we have different people have different points of view about that. My thought is, well, when you sign up for the service, if it's during wartime, then you know, well, okay, I'm going to go to war. If it's not wartime, then you don't know tomorrow you could be. So when you swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States and you know, defend it against all enemies, public and private, and obey the laws of the officers appointed above you, you know, you're saying I'm volunteering to give up my life for my country, and that means you could be called to war at any time. And so I feel my personal thought is, why wouldn't it be open to all veterans? But Congress hasn't agreed, and they're the one that gave us our charter, and so we don't have the option but so many, well, a lot of veterans who served in a time that when they're not eligible, many of them had parents that served at a time when they were. And so, like our Sons of the American Legion is I think of our three clubs, they're probably more active than the auxiliary and the Legion are today. And many of those active members are veterans themselves. They just didn't serve during the time that Congress decreed to make it eligible. So they come in as a son of the Legion, which is just as good. But anyway.
So which wars are eligible?
Ma'am?
Which veterans of which wars are eligible?
All the wars, it's just, you know, like World War I, obviously, none of those people left. World War II, the Korean War, there is you know, the short time, for example, that we had this Grenada War, that was a short time, but people have served during that time, not necessarily served in the war. I didn't serve in the Vietnam War. I served in Germany in the Cold War. We won that one, by the way. The people who served during wartime, so it was Grenada. I think the next eligibility period, did I mention the Korean War? Yeah, the Korean War, Grenada, then you had Desert Storm, and then the next one was the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. And so from the time that we started the war in Afghanistan until now, all those veterans are eligible. But before that, there was like 3 or 4 periods.
Vietnam?
Some other, Vietnam, of course, yes. So there was World War I, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam, Grenada, which was real short, and then
I think Panama.
that's right, Panama, and then after that was Afghanistan.
Iraq.
Yeah.
And from Iraq,
I mean,
they're eligible.
Desert Storm, Desert Storm, and then the war in Iraq, and yes.
They're all eligible from that. I don't know why. I guess it's been on the continuous war.
Right. So far.
Now, from 1990 or something to today, anybody that's been in is eligible.
Right. Yes, sir.
There's some tragic things that happened with the Legion Post in the Southern Tier. Recently, I saw on TV that the Legion Post in Johnson City at one time had about 5,000 members. Now it's down to only a few hundred. It's not enough to support it.
Right.
And it looks like, I've been passing many a time, and it looks like it was a converted home. Now they're going to sell out the post
Right.
and to some business is gonna tear it down, put up some new building.
Yeah.
I saw recently the Post in Waverly is up for sale.
Exactly, yes.
The one in Owego, after the floods of 2005, 6, and 11, they decided to close out the basement
Right.
and move the bar upstairs. And at one time, I remember in my childhood, there used to be another floor on top of it, and it was a beautiful building. But for some reason, they decided to tear that off, which is too bad.
Right.
And I was involved in the flood of last September, and I first was evacuated to the VFW post, then up to what used to be it's now a Biden Divine, the old school, Washington
Oh, yeah.
School.
Right, right.
Then we moved up here to Candor, and the VFW, Owego, just about lost their whole basement.
No, they did, yeah. It was flooded pretty deep. Yeah, a lot of posts, I think we're fortunate here that we have the crew, like any, just like Milt was talking about, the competition you had to go through to become president of this organization. That sort of competition is what you'll find in the American Legion and other, I think probably any volunteer organization, there's always, I think somebody said that between the Sons and the Auxiliary and the American Legion, we have in total something like 500 or 600 members, paid members. But you go to a meeting and you'll see just a handful. And that's the way, that's the way a lot of organizations are. There's dozens, if not hundreds of members. And then when it comes to active people that really pull the weight, there's just a small number. Well, it takes money to keep these buildings going, even just to pay, to pay for the maintenance of the building and the utilities and so forth. And if you have any activities, it takes money for that. And so we're fortunate that we have a building that we can keep going. Reenie mentioned earlier that saved our building fund. At one time, we were concerned when we had to close the building because we just didn't have the money to make it go. But in the last few years, I think has a lot to do with leadership about how we've become financially stable, and we're saving our building. And actually on that point, I hear sometime, I guess it was last fall, that our we call him the department commander, which is the Legion commander for the state, was here visiting. And I mentioned to him that you're trying to get ready for this big VIP to come in and visit your little humble little post. And at first I felt a little embarrassed that we had this little kind of rundown building over there, and it's not. It could be a lot nicer. But then I thought, I'm really proud of that because we have a lot of fundraisers and do things for the Legion, but we don't spend it on ourselves. We spend it on. If we spend it all on ourselves, we'd have a nice facility. We don't do that. Reenie mentioned many things that the Legion family donates money to, that we sponsor for the community, and I think I'm proud that we are. We spend more.
And the big ambulance service comes in.
Oh, that's right.
You forgot that after I told you on the phone.
Yeah, you were supposed to say that. Yeah. When did that start? The ambulance service got started in Candor by the American Legion, at the American Legion, and
Well, it took over from, it used to be that the funeral homes took care of it.
Myron Miller.
Yeah, you're right. And then it became, they had to have people trained, whether they were first responders back then or whatever. And
Oh, I didn't know they were trained.
huh?
not in the beginning.
They were trained to answer the phone.
That's like in Owego, there used to be an American Legion ambulance service, which is only a pickup and deliver service.
Right.
Finally-
That's how it was in the old days.
They were in a garage behind the Legion post, and then they moved over on a place just near the railroad tracks, just off at Central Avenue. And finally, they got to the point where when Ken Wolf was the county fire coordinator, he said, "You haven't got enough members to keep it going, I'm disbanding you." And it's one thing I wish he'd done, which he didn't do, take all their equipment, give it over to the Owego Fire Department, say you can use it till it's had it, and take the few members they had left and said, if you'll take the state test to find out what skill level you're qualified at, you can join the fire department emergency squad at that level.
Right.
But he never did that.
Did you say that one of our first ambulances came
Our
from
first ambulance here was from the Owego Legion.
Yeah, right. And I think Fred Quinlan was on that first call.
Was he?
Oh. What did you do?
I drove.
Oh, I thought maybe you were in the back.
No.
You didn't get picked up, you
I
got,
drove the ambulance.
oh, did you?
We had
Okay.
it for a number of years, though.
The telephone was in the bedroom. We had a telephone in our bedroom, and so if we got a call in the middle of the night, you know, Reenie and I get on, and we say, okay, I'll call so-and-so, or you, yeah, we got four
Yeah,
phones.
the way it used to be in Owego was, my mother was told by one of the funeral directors in Owego, you know, Esty Monroe, one of my feelings on said it, that earlier ambulances, and you'd see these on these old black and white movies on TV, were actually take the basic Cadillac, convert it to haul people laying out straight on a
Right.
stretcher with not much equipment. And that's what he did sometimes, because he was the only person in
Yeah, they just
they're
were,
the only people in town that had such a vehicle.
yeah, they were just for transport back in those days.
Right. Wasn't-
So when did the Legion stop the ambulance service and
Yeah, when did Legion stop the ambulance service? Or Bob, or Rainey?
I don't know, when they moved over to the other building.
I know it was after, I can't even tell. After
I can't give you a
1974.
date, I really don't know.
So they expanded, then when the ambulance service wanted to go for a grant, they wanted to just enfranchise themselves from the American Legion. So they branched off and dropped the Legion part of it at that point. Being sponsored by the American Legion, they weren't eligible
For second grant,
to
okay.
get grants. They elected to drop the name and
Okay.
You know, the SWAT service, this county has shrunk to the point that up between North Valley, Berkshire, and Richford, they don't have separate emergency squads anymore. They merged, they were ordered to merge them together and be headquartered out of Berkshire. Then the other two stations to keep their equipment, so that, so let's say it was in Cantor, I mean, in North Valley was the incident, that they used their equipment, because that was the closest.
Kind of like we do with our fire district here in the county. We have Welton, we have a station in Weltonville too, that's part of the same fire district for Gander.
Yeah.
They work together. Yes, sir.
Well, the point that Terry made about the Legion sponsoring the July 4th activities is very important to this community. That's probably, from a community-wide standpoint, that's probably the most beneficial support
Right.
that we have in the community. And it wouldn't take place, that's true, if it weren't for the Legion and all that
And it's a struggle too. Every year it's a
Sure.
struggle. Because you have a
And-
handful of people that are pulling their hair out, trying to figure out how we're gonna raise money here and raise money there and have all these things and coordinate it and get a carnival. This year, you know, I think all the feedback I've gotten was a resounding success. But we came this close to not doing that because we had a hard time lining up a carnival. It wasn't until the 11th hour that we had a carnival. And at that point, we're saying, okay, we'll have it, it'll just be Wednesday, the July 4th. We'll have a parade, and we'll have some small amount of fireworks, and that'll be it. And, but we were able to make it into a 4-day celebration.
The guy wanted to have more than one day.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think the overall community knows that enough, that they might be willing more to support it if they realize
Right.
that the Legion really struggles to be able to pay for this.
We have been preaching that for years.
Yeah,
So, yes,
And
sir.
when it comes to having carnivals, this year, because of the last September's flood, the Appalachian firemen said they couldn't get their field day field in shape fast enough. So they canceled the firemen's field days for this year.
Yeah, I heard. So, yeah, I think that the 4th of July, that's probably the biggest thing that happens in Gander every year, and the American Legion is what's made that happen. When I say the American Legion, I'm talking about the American Legion family, not just the Legionnaires. Yes, ma'am.
When did the Legion take it over from the community club, the 4th of July festivities? Because I know the community club for years was involved with that, and then the Legion, I remember reading in the Couriers talked about taking it over, and then they got upset about it, the Legion did, and they decided that, they were gonna give it up, and I think your hubby pulled them together and, got them going, but I remember something that the community club was somehow involved, and then it finally went to the Legion.
Community club used to be in charge of the floats.
Oh, okay,
This is the folks.
that's what it was, all right.
Yeah, just the floats. That's all they did, because I was in the community club, and my wife and I did the floats before we were in the Legion. So they did the floats, but that's all I can remember. Could have been more.
Yeah, yeah, that was the way it started.
Anything else, anybody?